Welcome to the Big Book Roundtable in the RICO 12 family of recovery resources. We are a small but loving fellowship gathered around this roundtable from all over the place. We're in North America, but we're in Canada and Oklahoma, and I'm in Washington, and we are speaking to people all over the world and sharing our experience, strength, and hope with anybody who identifies as with any manifestation of alcoholism. We're grateful to have you here. We're not going to kick you out for anything. Come join with us. I'm Justin B. I'm a child of an all-powerful and perfectly loving God and a multidisciplinary addict living in miraculous recovery. And what a beautiful place that is, and what a beautiful place this is to sit around this round table with David G. and Nikki M. David, why don't you take a minute, introduce yourself, and then we'll get rolling forward to Nikki next.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, thank you for your service. Nikki, always a pleasure to sit at the table with you, any table. I'm David G. I'm an alcoholic addict of many sorts, been given the gift of recovery since August 8th of 1994, and I live in Oklahoma in the USA. So thank you, Justin.
Thank you, David. Nikki, why don't you introduce yourself too?
Hi, I'm Nikki M., and I'm a grateful member, and I suffer the family disease of alcoholism, which includes all acting out and obsessive compulsive addiction patterns like sugar, food, overeating, nicotine, gambling, sex, love, fantasy, pornography, overworking, tasking, electronic media, self-harm, mutilation, overspending, debting, under-earning, cluttering, hoarding, emotions, codependency. Anyone can add to the list. I'm grateful to be here.
Nikki, that's quite the list. Thank you for being here, and my list is probably every bit as long. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so we are going to continue in Chapter 7, working with others today. And we're just going to cover two paragraphs at the top of page 90, but these include the interview process that David introduced me to a while back and introduced Nikki to, something that maybe we've each read many times, but never really thought that it applied to this process. But David has really opened my eyes. So what we're going to do is I'll read these two paragraphs and then we'll dive into it. So top of 90, grab your pen, highlighter, paper, take notes, highlight stuff up so that you can be uniquely useful to others as we commence shoulder to shoulder. All right. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given for his family also. They should be patient, realizing they are dealing with a sick person. If there is any indication that he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested with him, usually his wife. Get an idea of his behavior, his problems, his background, the seriousness of his condition, and his religious leanings. You need this information to put yourself in his place, to see how you would like him to approach you if the tables were turned. All right, so that's our reading today. What I'd like to do is, David, teach us. Help us understand this, dive deep on this so that we can better, all of us, not just us around this table, but those joining us from out there can be better prepared to help others.
Well, thank you, Justin. And Nikki, again, thank you so much for being here. I just love you guys, love getting into this work, diving in deep with you guys. You know, this is something that I didn't do for a long time, but today, whenever someone asks me to sponsor them, the first thing I do is sit down, ask them to sit down. I want to have a little talk with you. And I tell them, if you've got a big book, I need you to open it up to page 90. And they're like, 90? I mean, why the hell would we start on page 90 of the book, you know? And just remember, you asked me for help. It wasn't the other way around. So open up to page 90. And it says, when you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him, period. That means stop right there. So for me, the first thing that I'm going to ask him is, what is your name? How long have you been in the program? How long have you been sober? How many times have you worked the steps? Have you ever attempted to work at the steps? Where are you from? How long have you lived there? How did you grow up? Are you married? How long have you been married? Do you have children? How many children do you have? How many children, do you plan to have? What's your work like? You know, if I agree to take you through this work, how many hours are you going to be able to give me to it? What's all of this look like for you? It says, found out all you can about him. How many times have you been to jail? Have you ever been to jail? What's your belief? All of this, and so, I go into all of that with him, and he's looking at me like, damn, and he's answering all these questions. And I don't let him run off into a big, long story. I just want bullet points. It says, but here's the deal. If you don't want to stop drinking, you don't want to stop acting out, I'm not going to waste time with you. And I tell him that right there. And I tell him, if I decide to take you through this work after this interview process and you slack up on the work we're doing, I promise you, I'm not going to waste time chasing after you, trying to get you to do this. Our time is done. So if you want to do this work, we'll do this work. But if you don't, then I don't have time for it. So the first thing I'm going to do is find out all I can about him. I'm not going to waste time trying to persuade him, because, and the reason why is it may spoil a later opportunity. It's not because it's a one and done. There may be a future opportunity for me to do this. So here's that word again, advice. We don't give advice here, right? Bullshit. Look at that. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. You may spoil a later opportunity. This advice is given. Yes, we give advice here, provided that we're on spiritual ground to do so. I mean, if you're giving me advice from a sick state of mind, I'm not going to listen to that shit. But if advice is given after you've had a spiritual experience in your own fire for the spirit, yeah, absolutely. We give advice not only to him, but to his family also. Look at that. And they should be patient, realizing that they're dealing with a sick person, even sober. Just because we come in here, go to a few meetings, get some days behind us, and we've learned a little lingo, that's a far cry from recovering from the disease of alcoholism and sex addiction or whatever it may be. So if there's any indication he wants to stop, have a good talk with the person most interested in him, usually his wife. I've disqualified myself in that area. I don't do that today. That's one sentence here that I don't do. I'm not going to talk with his wife unless he's present. But it says here, get an idea of his behavior. And this isn't talking about while he's drinking or acting out. We know what his behavior is like. We're talking about his behavior when he's sober. I want to know, how is resentment eating you up? Where are you at with anger today? Your fears. Tell me about your fears. Tell me about your conduct. I want to know how many women you slept with, how many women you've been with. Tell me about your selfishness, your dishonesty, your inconsideration. Tell me about your faults. Tell me about your harms. I want an idea of your behavior while you're sober, because this is the shit that leads you up to act out. I want to know about your problems. Tell me about your problems while you're sober. Are you having trouble keeping a job? Are you having trouble, in your relationship? Are you having trouble with your family? What does your problems look like? Are you dating? Are you gambling? Are you scrolling? Are you looking at pornography? What problems are all over you today? Your background. I want to know about that, the seriousness of your condition. And I ask them this: what is your faith tradition today? And the weirdest thing is, a lot of people don't even know what a faith tradition is. What is your religious leanings? Because it says right there. And so once they tell me that, then I know how far I can go in one area and how far I can go in the other area as far as sponsoring them. I'm not going to talk to them about Buddhism and meditation if they're a Christian. If they're a Buddhist, I'm not going to talk to them about different practices. I want to stay within the confines of what their religious leanings are, because I've sponsored all kinds of people, priests and monks and Buddhists, and so I have a wide variety of that. At the end of this process, I tell them this, and the next sentence answers that question. I'm not asking you all of this to get in your business, because I don't really care about any of that, to be honest with you. But the reason I'm doing this is I need to put myself in your place if the tables were turned around. But what you've done right here by answering all of these questions that I've just asked you, honestly, you've told me exactly how to sponsor you. And so some of the questions that I throw at my guys that have been around for a while, especially on page 90, and the book answers these questions. What do we find out about a new prospect? They better be able to answer that according to page 90 in the top paragraph. When do we not waste time, and why? Who do we talk to first if the alcoholic wants to stop? What are the 5 areas we want to know about the alcoholic? And if my guys are wanting to sponsor, they better be able to answer these questions. Why do we need this information? If you're reading that paragraph, it'll answer these specifically. When do we not deal with a drunk? And remember, it says don't deal with him when he's very drunk. It doesn't say don't deal with him when he's drunk. It says when he is very drunk. So if he's drinking, I used to think, no, I can't do that at all if he's acting out. But if he's very, very drunk and oblivious, then no, I can't work with him. So what do we do? What's the most important person in the alcoholic's life to ask the drunk? How should we describe to the alcoholic by the person closest to them? How should we be described anyway? And so what should we never do? And if you read that paragraph again, it answers all these questions. Who does the discovering of a prospect? So there's so many things that I do whenever it comes to this. And this, from here to page 96 is the first visit. Look at all of that ground we have to cover before we ever agree to sponsor somebody. And people say, yeah, I'll sponsor you. Let's go. I don't have a whole lot of experience with that anymore. In the last 6 years, this is exactly the way I've done it. So thank you for asking me to comment on this morning, Justin. I'm anxious to hear from Nikki. Thank you.
David, and you're opening my eyes to this. 90 to 96 is the first visit. We got several pages. We got several opportunities to drive through this first visit in this roundtable, and I'm excited to get there. But first, let's get Nikki's take on these couple of paragraphs. What's your take on that, Nikki?
Well, lots. If you are listening, everybody, and you're going, I don't do that, what David does, don't worry. Neither do I. Okay. I don't do any of that. So, now, am I more selective about who I sponsor these days? Yes, because a lot of people want me to sponsor them. That being so, I have a little bit of a different process, but David, what he just showed us is for sponsoring. I want to do this from a different approach right now. Okay, let's do it from the approach of being a mom. How about being a single lady out there, a single man? Okay, so if you discover a guy or a woman you want to date, you better find out all you can about them, because I date a lot of people. I sponsor a lot of people. I'm in Sex and Love Anonymous. I'm in CODA. I'm in Al-Anon. And a lot of people want to know about dating plans and all these things. Here it is. This is a life instruction book. This is a design for living. So you better start finding out all you can about this new job, about the people you're moving in with, roommates. Like, this goes deep. Everyone's like, this is about sponsoring. This is a life instruction book. See, if the person you want to date doesn't want to date you, don't waste your time. Go deep. How about this, Nikki? If your son doesn't want to listen to how you want to manage your household, don't waste your time trying to persuade your son. My line out says no preaching. Don't be a nag. Don't be a spiritual nuisance, because I don't want to spoil a later opportunity. See, my son was misbehaving at 15. Now he's 20. I mean, he's being a normal boy, really. But my mom had just moved in. I didn't want any disturbances in my house. So I said, you can go live with your dad if you don't like the rules here. And I always keep saying, let me know how it works out for you, because see, I'm retired. I'm in my hot tub every morning, in my sauna, in a deep meditation. If your life and your struggles work out for you, let me know how that's working out for you, people. I'm not going to spoil a later opportunity trying to convince you how wonderful my lifestyle is, how great I am, and how you need to marry me, Mr. Luxembourg. If you're not ready, let me know how that works out for you, because it's not working out for him very well. You understand? You can apply this, people, not just for sponsoring. Apply this to a design for living that works in rough going, says our book on page 15. Okay. And then it says right here, like, I'm dealing with sick people. My line out says page 30, we learned we're sick. The entire world is sick, is what my book says, if it's run on self-will. Any life run on self-will will not be a success. So don't waste time with people whose lives are on self-will. Now, if you're doing this for a sponsee, of course, you need to show them how to do it. But I'm changing this because David showed us for a sponsee. I'm showing you how to live life. That's what the book says. Because I have a lot of women running around trying to persuade men that they're the greatest people to sleep with, and they're not. Okay, straight up. Now let's go a little further down where it says, get an idea of her behavior. Now, this is funny. David, I quoted this morning on Noodle. 9 a.m., I'm start Noodle on time, always, on the meeting I'm talking about. And then a sponsee calls, an old sponsee. And I only have a phone. So I'm like, it's bouncing me off the meeting. I'm trying to push the wrong buttons. And I come back onto Noodle finally after this is like a second. And I'm like, page 90, everyone. This person didn't get an idea of my behavior. See, this person knows I'm on Noodle every Monday at 9 a.m. This person doesn't even pay attention to my problems, my backgrounds. The seriousness of my condition is that I need to be focused for an hour on Noodle every Monday. And this woman knows me very well. She actually came on to Noodle and apologized publicly. We just laughed. We're not a glum lot, everybody. We just laughed because I said, she doesn't even understand the seriousness of my condition. She needs this information to put herself in my position. I'm running a meeting right now and she's calling me during the meeting. She needs this information to see how I want to be treated, approached if the tables were turned. You see, I use this a lot. I need to understand, go deeper. My mom lives with me. So we got to knock at the door. My neighbors are serving me papers and blah, blah, blah. And I saw my mom lose her mind. And rather than literally, I wanted to throw her out of the house in that moment. Untreated alcoholism squared. She started screaming, I can't live like this. And it's like, Mom, you're the one who let them in the house a year ago to even get to this point. But see, I understand her situation. She has no religious leanings. I understand the seriousness of my mom's condition. She's out of her mind in untreated alcoholism. Her husband took a pistol, blew his head off, and she hasn't spent one day dealing with it. See, I need this information because when my mom lost her mind the other day, I knew not to throw her out. I knew to go, it's going to be okay, Lynn. Go and have, I don't know, your Diet Coke and relax. Go and have a cigarette, even though you got COPD. Everyone needs a vice. And I didn't get mad. You see, this is not just for sponsoring everybody. You need this information for the entire human race so you know how to treat people when they're out of their minds. Or people have this information so you know how to treat me when I'm out of my mind. Love you guys.
Thank you, Nikki. And I love the direction you took that. It's unique and made me think. So, David, what I'd like to ask you in this is you said, hey, when I'm asking these questions, you get an idea of his behavior, his problems, ask him about when he's sober. And I'm putting myself in that position where, if I'm in the interviewee and somebody's asking me these questions, I'd say, oh, my life is a disaster when I'm drunk, when I'm a mess. Tell me why it's so important to dig in when they're sober, how they behave when they're sober rather than when they're drunk.
Yeah, for me, it's because I already know how they behave when they're drunk. I've been there myself, and so has most other people. But the reason that I ask those questions in that manner is because those are the things that lead us up to drink. We've been doing that all along in this study. We've been looking at the symptoms that set us up. Where are you at with your resentments? If I ask you about your resentments, say you and I was doing an interview process and I ask you about your resentments, I would ask you first, probably about your mother and your father. Where are you at resentments with them? Where are you at with resentments with your wife, maybe with some of your children? What about God? Are you resentful? What about yourself? Where are you at with resentments there? If I ask you about yourself, it'd probably go along those same lines. Are you cutting corners at work? Are you taking, more than you should in certain areas? What's it like in recovery? You want to stand out to be the number one guy, or are you taking a back seat and kind of listening more than you're talking? I ask those questions because I want to get an idea of his behavior while he's sober, because those are the things that leads him up to act out, especially when they start spiraling out of control, because most people at this point has no idea of where I'm fixing to take them next, which is going to be page 84 and 86. As soon as this is done, if I agree to go ahead and sponsor them through the process, We're going to 84 to learn about step 10. We're going to 86 to learn about step 11. And then after a few days of that, I'm going to take them to the front of the book and begin to read line by line by line by line and do the steps exactly as they're laid out. So I need an idea of your behavior a long time before I ever get into any of that, because then I'm going to know what to watch for as you and I go through this process together. I'm going to watch for your selfishness. I'm going to watch for your resentments. I'm going to see it in your nightly reviews. I'm going to see it in your 10 steps throughout the day. Then we can begin to address the real problem, and that's self. So anyway, I hope that answers that question. Thanks, Justin.
I think that's some great insight. Thank you for sharing that, David. Nikki, I am still just kind of spinning a little bit how you took these questions and you said, put this into a relationship, whether it's dating, whether it's, whatever it may be, even a professional relationship. How as you liken these paragraphs to that, how has that helped you in your own life? I know you shared a little bit about that, but how do you teach that to others, and how has that helped you to put those into relationships?
Well, it's great. I know my mind's spinning too, going, what did I just say? But page 18 says we need to be armed with the facts. So how's it helped me right now? Let me just go to the neighbor situation. The neighbors last year, it's May 2025. Last year in May 24, I went away and they're doing renovations. And I said, no, you cannot access my house. Well, when I was out of the country, it's a nightmare. We're in court, properly appointed authority. I got the lawyers, da-da-da. But see, I needed to get an idea of their behavior. Let's see, they're new homeowners. Okay, let's get an idea of them. There's two couples to buy one house. That means some type of money situation's happening, because it took two grown adult couples, a husband and a wife, and a husband and a wife, to buy one house. So let's get an idea of their problems. Okay, their background. They don't even understand what they did. They're not even armed with the facts. You want the seriousness of their condition. They can't finish their home until I let them finish, on my property. And I'm not going to without money, because they didn't understand. They didn't get armed with the facts. Nikki M's a licensed real estate agent that never used the license. Okay. Like, I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So how has this helped me? A year later, they can't finish their project. I've actually been able to practice patience. I've been able to get armed with the facts about these people, to actually have a little compassion, going, wow, they have no idea what they're dealing with, because they called the police on me and I told the police to get off my property, and they did. Why? I'm armed with the facts. I understand. You see, I understand the seriousness of owning a home. They didn't get armed with the facts about this. See, so this goes into all areas, even right now about, let's just go, me getting married. I'm a hardcore love addict. And Mr. Luxembourg, 6 years later, we're not putting a ring on it. Why? I have an idea of his problems. We live in other countries. He doesn't want to move to Canada. And I certainly can't leave right now. You understand? Like, I've got my home. I've got seniors, AKA fossils. Like, you understand, this helps me out all the time. Go deeper. I have an understanding of my 20-year-old's problems. He's never going to listen to his mother. He knows everything. So did I at 20. So why am I going to get upset with him? I'm just like, don't call me from jail, sir. I'm in my hot tub. You understand? Like, not my monkey, not my circus. I've armed him with the facts about where I am. I'm armed with the facts about where he is. So I hope that helps. I hope people it's not that I'm cold, I'm heartless. It's that God gave me a brain to use. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Nikki, for walking through that. I'm going to start with takeaways on this, and I'm going to start us off because, as I shifted this and looked at it in relationships, and I think, if I'm just out there looking at who I'm gonna get in bed with and want to do it as quick as possible, and even going to the extreme of porn, because that's basically what I'm doing. I'm taking somebody I have no idea anything about to bed with me, whether it's in my mind or whatever it may be. I need, before I take a jump into a relationship that can be that intimate. That's not the right word, but that's the word that's coming to mind. I need to know more about them. It's just it's a brutal way to demonstrate sickness, and I'm doing a really poor job of putting that into words. But man, it's just been really an eye opener that I need to spin on and just ruminate on for a little bit. David, what's a takeaway you have from our conversation today?
Well, I believe it would be thoroughness. And, I too have seen this in the area of relationships and sponsees and stuff like that. The difference with this is, I can do that interview process with them in the way that this is outlined, but I'm probably not going to be taking them through the steps. And so that's what the important part of this is for me. Is to stay along these lines whenever I'm working somebody through this process of the book. But thoroughness is the watchword. And I think anything less than that, well, we see it in all the fellowships that we're in. I see people sponsoring people that have absolutely no idea, how to do it. I've just had a guy recently from Big Book Step Study that's went all the way through the steps. And that's a pretty intense way to go through the steps. But he's acting out every single day and he's dying. And he said, I don't know what I've missed. Well, surrender, one. Two, somebody should have never continued working with you through the steps if you were continuing to act out. They should have stopped. They should have backed you up. But instead, they kept working through with the hopes that someday, somehow, he would get sober and stay sober. That's not what this is about. And so I think there's a lot of people sponsoring people in the rooms that aren't qualified to sponsor people in the rooms. I sponsor sponsors, and that's just how it is. And if they're not doing it according to this book, then they're getting a phone call from me. I've had some guys get pretty upset with the way that I've talked to them about the way that they sponsor, because, if you're not doing it the way that we do it here, you're not doing Alcoholics Anonymous. You're doing some other shit. I don't know what it is, but it's not AA, not the way the first 100 recovered through the book. So, but yeah, I think thoroughness would be my takeaway today. Thanks.
Thank you, David. How about you, Nikki? What's a takeaway for you?
Put yourself in his place. And for my indigenous brother, David G, at the table, walk 2 moons in their moccasins, right? Like I need to walk 2 full moon cycles in someone else's moccasins. Better yet, go into my retired burlesque entertainment language. I used to judge strippers and go, how could they do that and wear 6-inch stilettos? Well, God put a 6-inch stiletto on my foot for many years, and I had to walk around in it. And then I understood the table was turned. So until I'm walking a mile in someone else's moccasins, I don't want to open my mouth, my mind, or anything until I fully understand where they're coming from. Thank you.
Let me respond to that.
Go ahead, David.
Let me respond real quick, because I have walked 100 miles in those moccasins, or I wouldn't be doing this interview process with them, for one. For two, the idea that I'm just going to do this off of some whim, that, hey, here's a good idea. I read this in the book. I think I'll try this with you. No, I've had years and years and decades of experience doing this with other alcoholics. So had I not walked in their shoes, and that's something that I would like to say as well. If you're sponsoring an alcoholic and you've never had an alcohol problem, walk in their shoes before you try that. If you've never used drugs, but you're sponsoring a drug addict, walk in their shoes. So, yeah, walk the walk. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Nikki. Man, we just dive into this and all sorts of new angles and new perspectives and new understandings. Everybody, keep jumping into this. Keep coming back, diving in, learning, growing, and then share it. Share it with others. That's what the purpose of this program is to be able to share it with others. Join us in the fellowship of the Spirit and come trudge this adventurous and amazing road of happy destiny with us. Work it. You are worth it.